Guys, welcome to A Counselor's Journey to Private Practice. I'm here with Taylor Krumroy. He is a LCSW, and he's here to tell us about his journey in private practice. How you doing, Taylor?
Hey, well, I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having me over here. I'm excited to see this whole thing unfold that you're working on. This is awesome.
Awesome, man. Before you and I got on here, we were just kind of going back and forth. You were telling me that your practice is located next to Smith Diner. So if you guys are listening, Taylor and I were in Greensboro, and this is awesome diner. It's got pigs all over it, right?
Yeah.
That's like the mascot.
Yeah. It says open 8 days a week, which I still haven't been able to figure out, but I think it's open all the time.
And every time I go there with my wife or my kids, and they have these giant biscuits. And yeah. I'm like, I'm always questioning. It's like, I bet he gets a lot of patients who come in through the biscuit side. They're like, counseling and biscuit, I'll take it.
It does help. It does help. I did have to add a trash can out to the lobby because everybody's always tossing all their trash from the biscuits in there. So yeah, I did have to do that.
So Taylor, how did you get started in private practice? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, it was a long journey, man. Honestly, I was working at a community mental health center for almost 7 or 8 years, somewhere along those lines, in an agency that told me on day one, we will never give you a raise. We just need you to know that.
Wow.
And as a student coming right out of school, I mean, I really had no option to pick anything. It was either that or starve, So I ended up taking that job, and they filled up my 40-hour work week that day. I mean, it was instantly. I had 40 clients on my schedule. I mean, all 40. And the very first week, I had 40 assessments because they were 1 hour long assessments. And so they were all individual assessments, and it was a lot of work. So over the course of 6 or 7 years, I got all the training done. I got all the credentialing done with them, all the licensures, all the supervision, everything I needed. So they did provide me that. So that is the one big benefit of working at an agency like that when you get started.
Yeah, awesome.
But then I decided I can't do this anymore and deliver the same quality of mental health care that I really wanted to, because I was burned out.
Absolutely.
There was a Geico commercial a long time ago, and I remember it saying, "Does a drill sergeant make a good therapist?" And they had somebody crying on a couch, and they had this drill sergeant guy who always plays the same character in all the movies, and he threw a tissue box in the guy's face. It was like, "Suck it up, boy." And I felt like that's what was going to happen if I stayed at that agency versus some sense of balance in my own life. So I started looking into private practice, which had no balance at the beginning because of cost and because I didn't really know how I was going to make that transition. What I ended up doing was renting out a half of an office room inside of an existing private agency. I shared it with another lady. She rented out in the morning time, and I rented out in the evenings.
Nice.
So I would work 8 to 5, and then I would drive as an hour away. I'd drive from 5 until 6 to get here, and then see my new clients from 6 until 8. And that was my work day.
Yeah.
After I had enough clients built up to where I could do that every day of the week, 6 to 8, I ended up having 10 clients a week. It started feeling a little bit more realistic to be able to make that full jump. And I never made that full jump until it was about 1.5 years into it, until we ended up having a baby. And so I took took all the leave that I could from my old agency and decided I don't think I can come back. And then I just put everything into the private practice. But yeah, I had to start off just renting out a room just the evenings, and until I had enough to be able to rent out the room full time, and then just slowly built from there. So there was no big jump. I didn't do it all at once. I know some people do that, but I didn't have the financial means to be able to do that on my own.
Well, yeah, no, your journey is amazing, and it makes sense. I started off in intensive in-home therapy, so I get that. I get the burnout. One of the best supervisors I had, he told me, we were in the agency, and he's like, "I'm burnt out. I'm leaving the field." And as a clinician, amazing clinician, but sometimes when you're going in there and it's like, here's 40 patients, assessments all day, we can't be that drill sergeant in that commercial.
Yeah, I actually started off in intensive in-home too, an MST, same thing, but
cool. Virtual high five.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was working 80 hours a week there, and our supervisor, I think the longest anybody had been at that entire agency was 1 year. So you had like a district supervisor in there. They were like, yeah, I've been here for 11 months. And I mean, everybody. I lasted 3 months before I went to that community agency and took a job that guaranteed no pay raises. So, but
Yeah.
it was I just couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, like you said though, sometimes in those agencies, it's tough. You're grinding, you're hustling, but you are learning so much, and you're getting used to like how to handle a tough caseload, how to handle maybe a diverse caseload. I'm very grateful for that experience when I look back at it, but it's definitely not something that I could have stayed in. And
Yeah,
been,
I almost recommend. I think every clinician could gain a lot of knowledge working in like a community mental health center for like a year or two out of school. I really do think there's so many things you learn there that you just don't get an opportunity. I haven't seen a fully schizophrenic in 5 years in my private practice, but that was a regular occurrence at the community agency.
mm-hmm.
Or fully psychotic bipolar people that were coming in hallucinating, and I just, again, I haven't seen that yet here in 5 years. So there is,
Yeah.
you get access to a lot of different disorders that you would otherwise never, I think, get a chance to see.
Absolutely. I think that pushes that like clinical mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go into the entrepreneur mind because what you did definitely had that side pulsing like spider senses whenever you were like, okay, I found this office space and I'm going to rent half the day. I think sometimes clinicians go to graduate school and it's like, I need this 5-star office space with nice leather furniture, Dr. Phil in the background so they know I'm legit.
Yeah.
And then you're like 10 grand a hole in 1 month.
Yeah.
I think you did it the right way where it's, I'm going to just crawl and then walk and then I'm going to run.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, I, now that I am hiring other therapists, I do a lot for them. So I furnished their offices. I do all that stuff for them. So I think if you're jumping into a private agency like that with somebody else, a lot of that is solved for you, but if you're like me, somebody who really struggles with, authority, I've never been good with having bosses tell me what to do and all that kind of stuff. And I want to do my own thing, create my own schedule. There was no question. I knew I had to go this route. I had to. I mean, I'm wearing jeans, tennis shoes right now, and I'm surprised there's a collar, honestly, at the moment. So this is, and no boss to yell at me about it. It's amazing.
I love that. I'd love it. Love it. Yes. Tell me, how did you negotiate that structure? How did you find somebody that said, hey, I have half a day or just the evenings?
Well, there's a local therapy group I believe you're a part of on Facebook, and it was like a local therapist, private. I think it's like private therapy owners or something like that with our local city name, Greensboro or something. And so I hopped in there before I did any of this and started asking people like, hey, how did you guys do some stuff? And I eventually ended up getting in contact with somebody that just offered it to me. And they said, well, hey, I have a full office that I can't afford. Would you like to take half of it off my hands in the evenings? I work early mornings and I hate mornings. So that was a perfect fit. It's just, that was a perfect idea. So it just kind of honestly fell into my lap. I don't know if I would have been able to come up with that idea on my own or even knew that was a possibility, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily, I think that community that I found on Facebook really, really helped.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think I do see a lot of work that you did, so I'm going to give you a virtual claps. Because you went out there and you looked sometimes, and this is just me. I remember going back into the early days. I felt so lonely, like not sure what to do. How do you get a patient to come in, and then how do you build that relationship? So taking that step to say there's like a lot of people out there in society, in the world, that have been doing this counseling business stuff long before me. Let me just jump into this group and ask some questions.
Yeah. I think finding a mentor, honestly, is a great way to go. And these days, everything is online. Everybody is available online. And so it's probably even easier now than ever before. But I think that's a really good first step, is reaching out and finding a mentor. Finding somebody who's in the practice and just starting there. And then the networking piece is the next hardest piece. How do you get, because at that agency I worked at for the 7 years, it was in a whole different city. So everybody in that city knew me, from the court systems to the hospitals. I mean, they all knew me. I had a well-established network based in that city. And when I moved here, which is where I lived all along, but I was working in a different city an hour away. When I came and decided to open up a practice here in town, I realized I didn't know a single person. You know, and I was like, well, how do I get referrals from any other therapist, any doctor's offices? I mean, I knew absolutely nobody. And that was a scary thing. I actually ended up joining a group called, I think it was called BNI, Business Network International, or they were a splinter group of that. But BNI is the idea of it is it's a network of individuals in the community that are all private business owners, but within the group, it's about 30 or so people in each group.
Okay.
And you're only allowed one person from each industry. So there's a plumber in that group that has his own practice. There's an electrician. There's a doctor. There's a workout trainer. There's somebody who sells insurance. There's always an insurance.
Nice.
There's always a financial advisor in there, a CPA accountant. And so there's all these different people in this group. And what you do is you meet every single week in the morning. Ours was early, 7 a.m. And for the first 30 minutes of the meeting, they would go around and give everybody 30 seconds to share a little bit of something about their business.
Yeah.
And then every week there would be one person. There was a lot of like 10 minutes to go into detail about their business. And then there was cookies and coffee, and everybody got to associate for the last 10 minutes, and then you would leave. And that was a great way to be able to start as well, just meeting people in the community. Practicing speaking in front of people, practicing what they call the elevator speech when somebody says, "Hey, what do you do?" You know, and you would think that's an easy answer to question, or an easy question to answer when it comes to what we do. But you know, if you're not prepared, it's like it's sometimes you just get tongue-tied. And say,
Yep.
You work with mentally sick people, and you're like, "No, that sounds bad. Maybe I don't know, I'm a therapist." And you ever tell somebody you're a therapist, they're like, "Oh yeah, like a physical therapist," or
yeah.
So that was also a great way to be able to learn how to just promote yourself as a private business owner.
It sounds like it helped a lot.
Yeah, it does. And you're surrounded by like-minded people that want to make money. And I don't know how your program was in school. I know a lot of grad programs. I know our industry as a whole. I have heard more times than I ever want to count people say, if you're in it for the money, then you're in the wrong business. And I think that drives a lot of people away, or either that, or it creates this guilt that we tend to have, where it's like, well, I want to be a private cash pay only business, but I have a duty to provide services to people that can't pay. And I think a lot of people either walk around with a lot of guilt or limit themselves in a way to actually making money in private practice.
It's tough. You know, we come from such a healing field, humanitarian, where we're literally serving the community and serving the community at the lowest impoverished level. So then you've got like this clinical side, entrepreneur side that's going cash-based business. How can you increase revenue every year and make more money? I think that pushes against so many people. And I didn't take any courses in graduate school that really talked about, let's build a healthy relationship with you as a business owner.
Right. Yeah. We had no business courses in my master's program.
No. It would be more of, you know, if a patient comes to you and they're struggling and they don't have resources, how can you go out of your way to support them to find resources, even if that means you're doing pro bono work?
Yeah.
So, you know, you really push on that other end of the spectrum, which is beautiful. But then when you're trying to get to the other side of the spectrum, that has to do with building a practice, paying your bills, giving your kids a nice future, that can become very anxiety driven.
Yeah, I was at it was like a self-care training clinic with the alumni from our graduate program. And it was two ladies who ran their own separate private practices for decades, and they burned out. So they decided to become public speakers and go and do trainings all around the country. And they really did try to help people figure out, like, it's okay to want to make money. The more financially secure you are, probably the better services you're going to be able to provide, because you're not freaking out all moments of the day either. You know, worrying about, are my kids okay? And so I do think I think that's an arena where we need to become a little bit more accepted, or a little bit more open to the idea of maybe making money and providing services to people is an okay thing. I found that now that if you charge enough money, if you make enough money, then you can go and you can do pro bono work and not feel resentful about it, or not be actually physically restrained by just, I don't have enough money in my gas tank to make it across town to meet with this person that really needs my help.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
What you said earlier, I mean, it makes a lot of sense with the money conversation, as far as you worked with that agency and you were burnt out and you got to a point where you were like, I am so tired that I can't provide that 100% level service I want to, so I need to change things up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I mean, if you're operating a practice and then you're so anxious and worried about being able to pay the bills, get your kids through school, you're trying to support a patient in a session who's struggling with, let's say, depression, but half your mind is talking about money issues. You're not fully present.
Yeah, it really does make a big difference. So that was one of the big reasons I was adding up the money working at this old agency, realizing that at 40 patients a week, we billing our Medicaid $100+ an hour. I was bringing in $4,000 a week to this agency, and I think they were paying me less than like $500.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that also, again, the resentment starts building up, where it's like, okay, I'm starting to get angry. And I don't want to be angry. I don't. That's not helping me here. So yeah,
Yeah.
eventually it's just a combination of a lot of those different variables that just culminated to the point of deciding I need to go in private practice and try this on my own.
Once you were in that office for a while sharing space, what helped you to take that leap to the Krumroy group? Because right now you've got your own building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got clinicians there. How did you go? How did you take that leap?
Well, it all kind of happened organically, which was it, just the stars aligned and things worked out perfectly. So eventually, one of the other therapists in the building here left. And so the one I was splitting the office with, she ended up having enough clients to where she needed a full day. So she moved into that other full office. Mine opened up to being able to rent out for a full time. So I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to rent this for a full time office. And I probably did that for maybe a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
Before the private business owner, the private practice owner who rented out this building left. She got too big. So she ended up having to go to a new building, a new office location where she could provide more offices for all of, I was the only person in this building that didn't work for her.
Okay.
So they just kept me around. I don't know, maybe they liked me. I got lucky, but they kept me around. So she needed more space, more offices. She ended up moving out of the building. And then the opportunity arose for me to either just, roll the dice and see who comes in next, or just rent the whole thing out on my own. So even though I had no other therapist working for me yet, and I still didn't have a full schedule, that I was comfortable with, I took over the rent. I just decided I'm just going to do this and then sublet it out.
Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing at the very beginning. I rented out the entire building, and then I sublet it out. I went to that Facebook group, reached out to a couple other therapists I had met in the community, and just rented all the other offices out to other private practice owners who were just operating individually just by themselves.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while until my schedule was so full that I couldn't handle anymore. I probably had a waiting list of 20, 25 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I'm going to hire somebody on and hand them my waiting list, and then that way somebody else can start with 20, 25 clients. And then we just kind of slowly built from there.
Good plan. How did you assess a waiting list? How did you, how were you able to say, I have a waiting list?
Well, that was tricky. And that's where this whole thing of self-care came in. I tried to continue saying yes to people that kept calling up for more appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I kept saying yes. And until I started getting that familiar feeling from that community center. And I could feel it. I could start noticing that, like, I didn't want to come into work. I started noticing some compassion fatigue near the end of the weeks, or it actually started coming out at home first. I'd spend an entire week at work, and then I noticed at home, my wife would complain about somebody at work who continues to leave the coffee pot on or forgets to turn it off. And I was like, that's such a dumb problem, right? That seems so simple. and I realized this is compassion fatigue. You know, this is I'm comparing her problems to my patient's problems, and that wasn't fair. So I just started trying to get a feel for what number of clients a week am I comfortable with.
Yeah.
For me, it came right around about 25. About 25 a week is where I think I'm operating at maximum efficiency, where I still can feel really, really good about what I'm doing, not feel burned out, and still be able to make an okay paycheck and not feel about the financial situation. So I cut it off at about 20. I had to taper down to about 25, and I just had to start saying no to people. And I just told them, I had to tell them on the phone, guys, my schedule is full, and I don't know when it will open up, but I'll put you on a list. So I just started an Excel sheet and just put the person's name, put the person's phone number on there, and then the date when I told them they had to start waiting for me. And then that scarily grew fast. You know, I just watched that list just keep growing and growing. And that's no, and realistically, when I ended up handing that list over to the person that I contracted on to work for me, out of that list of 25, maybe like 8 transitioned, you know, because a lot of them had already found new therapists along the way, or a lot of them were saying, well, no, we've already waited this long for Taylor. We'll just wait till he opens up and we'll see him. So what I planned happened was to set this new therapist off, you know, just hitting the floor and running with it. And that in reality soon, you know, popped its ugly head, and then we had to really get his schedule full. So that's a whole other set of challenges as well.
Yeah, that's the journey, right? It's like we get up a mountain and then it's like, oh man, this feels good.
Yeah.
You wake up and the next day gives you a new challenge, which I love. You know, I love having life with challenges. It just seems to make it so much more purposeful. I've got a very energetic personality, so it gives me something to create, to do, to engage with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell my clients the same thing. You know, I tell my clients all the time, if we're looking to feel good about ourselves, we have to do something that we don't think we could do.
Yeah.
And so I have a 3-year-old right now. Now, she can't tie her shoes right now. But when she figures that out, man, she is going to be over the moon happy, you know, and I'm going to be cheering her along. I'm going to be clapping my hands. We're going to be telling our family members about it. You know, look, she can tie her shoes now. And every time we talk about it, her self-esteem is going to be increasing. I know it. But if I were to congratulate you for tying your shoes today, your self-esteem isn't going to go up at all. You know, you knew you could do it. So I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, if we need to build self-esteem, let's do something we don't think we could do. And I think as therapists, oftentimes we have great advice for everybody else, but we rarely follow our own advice.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Taylor.
And so that's one of those things that also, again, one of those variables that came into how do I do this private practice. I started realizing that all the best things in my entire life came from a place of massive self-doubt, feeling like I'm in way over my head and thinking there's no way this is going to work. You know? I mean,
perfect
I apply that to college, to grad school, to changing my old job, starting a private practice, getting married, having children, all of it, same familiar feeling. And I think that feeling stopped a lot of people from being able to try to make this jump into practice.
Yeah, it's a dead end road that we need to say, wait, it's a detour.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just another challenge. But
how have you over the years funneled those that you serve, patients, clients, into your practice?
Well, I remember the very first area of referral sources were, I believe it was Psychology Today. I think that was the first thing I did. So I went on there and I just made a profile. And I didn't get many from it, but you know, when you have 3 clients, 1 is awesome. You know, you're almost doubling your entire practice. So so that was the very first place I went. Then that networking group that I met with every single week. So that ended up handing out quite a few clients. So again, I can't encourage people more than to do that networking group, something similar. They're in every city across the country. And I went to a lot of doctors' offices, and I don't feel like this actually works. I went to a lot of doctors' offices and handed out business cards and brought them donuts and talked to the doctors. I don't think that ever panned out. Honestly, I think all I did was just buy food for other people and spend money on Vistaprint. So I
maybe you should have gave them the biscuit.
Yeah, that's I will say that I have done very limited marketing here, and almost all, I'm just going to make up a number, probably 80% of all of my clients have come from referrals from existing clients.
That's beautiful. I mean, that shows you're doing a great job.
So yeah, that's been how it's just gone ever since. I occasionally now get people from my child's pediatrician's office. You know,
Yep.
I get a few people there, about maybe 3 to 5 a year, so nothing to write home about. Um, I don't think I've gotten a referral from that old networking group. They probably all forgotten who I am over the past 5 years.
That strategy you use, with going to medical offices, it's one that I remember reading. Do I have it here? I do. It is right here. Building Your Ideal Private Practice. You probably can't see it, but it's an old book. It's by Grotsky, I think it's the author's last name. And something in that book, this was years back in 2014 when I finished graduate school, pushed me to first interact with the physicians that my friends, and my family system were already connected with, because we've already had established relationships. And then what I did was I did exactly what you did, where I went there, then I brought them something, but I also brought them some sort of template that they can use to give their patients, regardless if they wanted to work with me. And I based the templates off of what the office provided. So like if it's a medical office for population that's a little bit older, maybe our age, versus a pediatric office, I'll have anxiety tips for kids or anxiety tips for parents to help their kids, right? And then on there, I'd have information about myself and then how to contact the counselor, me being the counselor. Mm-hmm. And then I would specifically look for not the physician, but the referral coordinator or the front desk staff. And I would do a 3-way communication. One was face-to-face, phone, email, and then if all 3 of those didn't work with a week apart, then I would scratch it and maybe revisit it later, but then keep going from there. Now, obviously, it's a lot of work, but if we look at like ROI, return on investment, just like you said, you do psychology today, you pay $30 a month, but you pull one person out of there, and if you're charging $100 an hour, that minus 30, you're at 70. So your return on investment's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have definitely found it's about just meeting people. It really is just about meeting people, and I am, now that I'm in a place where I can spend other money on other advertising that doesn't get me immediate business. Now I've started doing some of the advertising of just getting my name, just the exposure of the name of the group out there.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting immediate phone calls. I don't know many people that see a billboard and they're like, oh, look, it's such and such law group. I need an attorney now. Let me call. Instead, it's they see that billboard, 75 times until 5 years down the road, they need an attorney for a speeding ticket. They're looking and they look online. They remember, oh, I know that name. Maybe it's legit.
Yeah.
So now I'm at the point where I'm starting to do some of that type of advertising. That's not immediate gratification, I guess, if you will. But I think that's something you can eventually do later down the road. But there's no way I could have done that at the beginning with such limited funds.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the beginning, I think we have to be so conscious of where to spend money. And now it seems like you're planting a seed and really watering it, taking care of it. So later down the road, it organically springs up and then you've got things rolling for you. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I did have actually a web guy too. So I ended up hiring a web guy who's actually a really cool person, mountain bikes with me. And he ended up building a website for me and does all sorts of like Google Analytics and all that kind of stuff. So I do get actually quite a bit of referrals by just people finding my name on the internet, just looking for stuff. And so I think that's actually, if you can get a good web guy. Now, at the very beginning, I built my website by myself, and it was embarrassing. It was terrible. And I don't think anybody found it because, I didn't know anything about the Google Analytics. But if I would do it again, if I could do it again, I would probably invest in more of that in the beginning than waiting the way I did. That seemed to be a very efficient approach to getting immediate calls.
Yeah, good point. I think sometimes that one thing we don't think about is it's 2020, right? And if you think about you and I driving down the road, we get a flat tire, we're probably going to pull our phone out and say mechanic near me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the phone's going to give us pictures or videos or something that we can utilize.
Right.
And it's, you know, I mean, you're doing it perfectly. You've got this, and I saw your website's awesome. It's got you on there, your dog, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You
which
put the
I'm,
voice in there.
yeah, I'm a big pet man, so that it was relatable, and it was easy to read, approachable. So I think, you know, I think if you're starting a private practice, there's certain buckets you do want to put money in,
Yeah.
and a website's one. But if you can't afford a website, then definitely throwing $30 a month to Psychology Today. I like to call it like a mini website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And then the idea of picking a niche, I think, is really is a very good way of getting more clients, because then you can go to other therapists in the area and you can say, hey, this is what I do. And I know a lot of us get burned out with groups. I ran DBT groups for 8 years. But there's a lot of therapists out there that don't want to run groups. And so if I could do all this again, I would have gone up to a lot of different therapy agencies in town and just say, hey, look, I'm running these DBT groups.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any patients you want to refer over here, you know, then you can send them over this way and I'll see them in the group format, and you can keep them as individual clients and we can start from there. Because what most likely is going to happen is you're going to funnel some of those group therapists or some of those group therapy clients into your private practice, and they're going to make that transition away and they're going to start meeting with you as well.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you're getting the respect of the other therapist as well for providing a valuable service of something that they might not be wanting to do.
Absolutely. And they're going to value that because it's a person they're, you know, treating and supporting.
Yeah. So that's a good way to be able to connect with other therapists and get things started, and just being able to define yourself as who you are, as opposed to just, I work with everything. You know, you're sad,
Yeah.
come to me. You're nervous, sad to me. Old, young, small, I don't care. And I think it
Yeah.
builds
Yeah.
a level of credibility as well.
Too broad can be limiting.
Sure.
Well, listen, Taylor, it's been awesome. It has been a pleasure sharing space with you, learning and listening about your journey in private practice. If there's counselors out there, anyone listening, and they want to pick your brain a little bit more, they want to, you know, learn how maybe you negotiated your rent or how you build authentic relationships with people in the community, how can they reach you?
You can email me directly at taylor@krumroygroup.com, and that last name is KRUMROY group.com. That's the best way. I have not gotten the practice to a point yet where I have somebody answering my calls for me. So I don't answer the call. So if you try to call me, you're probably not going to reach me. It's just going to go to voicemail. But send an email over to me, and I can definitely, I'd love to be able to talk with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor.
All right. Well, have a great day. Thanks for the opportunity.